Night draped itself over Manhattan with the heaviness of wet velvet. The storm had not been forecast, but rain came anyway, slanting, insistent, as though the heavens had decided the city needed to be washed without consent. Crowds rushed with umbrellas that turned inside out, taxis hissed over slick streets, and neon signs smeared their colors across puddles. At the intersection where Park Avenue widened into a theater of steel and glass, a man in a suit the color of midnight hurried from the revolving doors of a skyscraper. His name was Alexander Wycliffe, billionaire investor, architect of 100 high-tech ventures, and guardian of a fortune that could buy most blocks outright. His hair, silver at the temples, glistened in the rain as though it, too, had been polished by money. He walked quickly, his driver waiting in a black town car by the curb. But the storm had its way with him. Gusts tugged at his coat, and in the scuffle between wind and man, something slipped. A wallet, heavy with leather and weightier still with the secrets of power, tumbled from his pocket. It struck the sidewalk with a soft slap, then slid against the curb. Alexander didn't notice. He stepped into his car, the door closed, and the city swallowed him in motion. The wallet lay abandoned in the storm. Minutes later, a figure emerged from the shadow of scaffolding, tall, shoulders bent from years of carrying burdens without rest. His coat was frayed at the cuffs, shoes worn thin, skin dark and glistening with rain. His name was Malik Carter, once a son, once a worker, now a man the city counted only when it tallied those without homes. Malik noticed the wallet because the storm nudged it toward him. He stooped, lifted it, and the weight startled him. Inside, bills folded thick, cards embossed with names that opened gates, photographs sharp with ink and color. For a heartbeat, his fingers lingered. Hunger tightened his stomach. Cold gnawed his bones. This leather box in his palm could buy a month of meals, a year of shelter. Yet Malik also saw something else. A picture, tucked behind the bills. A woman's face, smiling faintly as though she belonged to a private world. The corners were worn from being touched. The photo smelled faintly of cologne and rain. Malik whispered to himself, "This belongs to somebody who still remembers her." He turned toward the traffic, searching. The black car had already merged with the blur of taillights, gone toward the avenues where the wealthy sleep behind glass walls. Malik's chest ached with the pull of decision. He could keep the wallet no one had seen, or he could return it, though he knew well how suspicion followed men like him. He stood there, soaked, torn between two worlds, need and truth. The storm hushed for an instant. A breeze swirled, warm despite the rain, carrying the scent of bread from a bakery blocks away. Malik stilled. He thought he heard, though perhaps it was only the echo of memory, a voice from long ago. His grandmother, singing an old hymn she used to hum when life fractured around them. Day will come, light will mend. Keep your name true till the end. The sound lasted only a moment, but it was enough. Malik tucked the wallet under his coat, close to his chest. "I'll find him," he murmured. "I'll give it back." The following morning, Alexander Wycliffe sat in his penthouse office, walls of glass overlooking the washed-clean skyline. He scrolled through endless messages, irritated by trivialities, until his assistant entered with a hesitant knock. "Sir, someone's here. He says he found your wallet." Alexander frowned. He checked his pocket. Empty. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face. He had not noticed the loss. "Who is it?" "A man from the street. He insists it's yours." Security was already poised at the door when Malik stepped inside. His damp coat still smelled of rain. His shoes squeaked on marble floors. He carried the wallet in both hands, like an offering in a cathedral. Alexander's eyes narrowed. This man, ragged and tired, looked so out of place amid glass and steel that it seemed the city itself had erred in letting him in. Malik extended the wallet silently. "I believe this belongs to you," he said, voice steady though his heart beat quick. Alexander took it, flipped it open, and confirmed the photo of the woman inside. Relief softened his shoulders. "You could have kept this," he said. "I could have." Malik replied simply. But it wasn't mine to keep. The words hung in the polished air, weightier than the wallet itself. Alexander studied him. What do you want in return? Malik shook his head. Nothing. Only say her name, whoever she is, so she doesn't get lost in a wallet. Alexander blinked, caught off guard. He closed the wallet slowly, fingers brushing the photo inside. For a moment, silence trembled between them. It was the first crack in a wall of years, the first step toward a bond neither man expected, and one that would change both their lives. The rain had rinsed the city clean, but Malik carried its chill in his bones as he left the penthouse lobby. Returning the wallet should have ended the story. It should have been nothing more than a brief encounter between two worlds that never truly touch. But truth has a way of leaving fingerprints, even when one tries to wash them away. Alexander sat in his office long after Malik had gone, the wallet heavy in his palm. He opened it again, not for the bills or the cards, but for the photograph inside, the woman with the gentle smile. Elena, his late wife. The photo had lived there for years, worn and creased by grief's restless thumb. He remembered Malik's words. Say her name, so she doesn't get lost. That night, for the first time in months, Alexander spoke her name aloud in the empty apartment. Elena! His voice cracked like a window suddenly opened. The silence that followed did not feel hollow. It felt as though someone, somewhere, had listened. The next morning, a call surprised him. His assistant said a man was downstairs asking to see him. The same one who returned your wallet. Alexander should have declined. He had meetings stacked like dominoes. Instead, curiosity, perhaps conscience, pulled him from his agenda. He descended to the marble lobby, where Malik waited by the revolving doors, shoulders hunched against the cold. I didn't come for money, Malik said quickly. I just thought I'd make sure you still had it. Alexander raised an eyebrow. You think I'd lose it twice? You'd be surprised what people lose twice, Malik answered, half smiling. Names, promises, even themselves. The remark struck Alexander deeper than he wanted to admit. He gestured toward the cafe corner of the lobby. Come. At least have coffee. You did return something I'd never want to lose. They sat awkwardly at a small table, steam rising from paper cups. Malik wrapped his hands around his coffee as though it were a fire. Alexander sipped, trying to reconcile the man before him with the instinct to dismiss him. You're not from nowhere, Alexander said finally. Nobody is. Who are you? Malik hesitated. Pride and shame warred in his throat. I worked construction. Union job. Then machines came. Then the layoffs. My mother passed. Rent doubled. A series of small breaks, you know? Until the floor wasn't there anymore. And no family left? Family? Malik gave a short laugh. Family leaves when your pocket's empty. Or maybe I left them first. I don't know anymore. He looked out the window where traffic pulsed like veins. But I still have my name. Malik. My grandmother gave it to me. Said it meant king. Doesn't look like it fits, but I carry it anyway. Alexander stirred his coffee, though it needed no sugar. You gave me back something I couldn't replace. That means more than you think. Maybe, Malik said, eyes softening. But it doesn't change where I go when we're done here. Back to the street. Back to no bed. The words hung between them like a challenge. Alexander thought of Elena, how she had once scolded him for stepping over beggars without seeing them. They are not invisible, Alex, she had whispered. They carry God's face, too. He cleared his throat. You'll not go back tonight. Come upstairs. I have space. Malik blinked, startled. I'm not looking for charity. Neither am I, Alexander said firmly. Call it a guest. One night. A bed. A meal. Nothing more unless you want it. Malik studied him, measuring pride against exhaustion. Finally, he nodded. One night. The penthouse was a palace of glass and silence. Malik stepped inside warily, shoes leaving faint damp prints on the polished floor. His eyes darted across art that seemed too expensive to breathe near. He whispered, This place could house 50 families. Alexander didn't answer. Instead, he opened a closet and pulled out fresh linens. The guest room is yours. Showers down the hall. That night, Malik stood under hot water until steam fogged the mirror. Dirt and city soot streamed away. He touched his chest and whispered his name. Malik, like a prayer, like an anchor. When he stepped into clean clothes, the mirror showed not just a homeless man, but someone who still bore dignity under the rubble. Meanwhile, Alexander poured himself a drink in the study. The city glittered outside his window. Yet the penthouse no longer felt like an empty shrine. A presence stirred in the air. Not just Malik's, but something subtler. The hum of the refrigerator softened into a low chord. A draft curled warm from nowhere, carrying a faint scent of cinnamon. He stilled, goosebumps rising. Elena had loved cinnamon. From down the hall, a low hum floated. A tune, simple, almost childlike. Malik, half asleep, was humming an old lullaby his grandmother used to sing. The sound threaded through the walls, weaving into the penthouse's silence. Alexander set down his glass. For the first time since Elena's death, he felt something shift inside him. Not a solution, not an answer, but a door creaking open to light. Morning brought awkward grace. Malik sat at the kitchen island, uncertain if he was allowed to touch anything. Alexander made eggs clumsily, burning the first attempt, then laughing at himself. Malik chuckled. "You're out of practice," Malik said. "I was never in practice," Alexander admitted. Elena cooked. I ordered. The name slipped out without thought. Silence followed, heavy but not hostile. "You said her name," Malik whispered. "Good." Alexander swallowed hard. "She'd have liked you." The words surprised both of them. For breakfast, they shared slightly overcooked eggs and laughter that startled them with its ease. Malik ate slowly, savoring not just the food but the dignity of being treated as a guest. Afterward, Alexander offered, "Stay until you're ready. Not forever. Just until you find your feet again." Malik looked down at his hands, scarred and strong. His throat worked. "I don't know how to accept that." "Then let's both learn," Alexander said softly. And so, 2 lives, one drenched in wealth, the other stripped to need, began to braid together in fragile threads of trust. Neither man knew yet that the braid would hold against storms far greater than rain. But already the first knots of kinship had been tied. The days that followed unfolded quietly, like pages of a book neither man had expected to read. Malik lingered in the guest room, at first too cautious to sleep deeply, then gradually letting the warmth of sheets convince him that safety could exist without conditions. Alexander kept telling himself this was temporary. A kind gesture, a repayment for honesty. But with each sunrise the apartment seemed to rearrange itself around the presence of another soul. The silence, once thick as marble, softened. Where there had been only the drone of appliances, now there were small human sounds. Malik humming as he shaved, the scrape of spoon on bowl, the gentle thud of his boots by the door. One night, Alexander found himself pacing in the study, restless with memories. The photograph of Elena sat on his desk, her smile unchanged though the world around him had fractured. He pressed the wallet shut, ashamed of how little comfort it gave him. From the guest room came that hum again. Malik's lullaby, a melody as fragile as glass and as steady as stone. Alexander leaned against the doorframe, listening. "What is that tune?" he asked softly. Malik looked up, startled. "An old hymn. My grandmother sang it when storms rattled the windows. She said it was older than her, older than slavery, older than sorrow itself." He smiled faintly. "I never believed her. But somehow, whenever I hum it, rooms change. Change. They breathe easier, like they remember they're not just walls." Alexander wanted to dismiss it as superstition. Yet as Malik resumed humming, something uncanny stirred. The air warmed though no vent blew. Curtains shifted though windows were sealed. A vase of lilies that had begun to wither lifted its petals, as if deciding not to die just yet. Alexander's throat tightened. Do you hear that? What? The hum. Not yours, the one underneath it. Malik tilted his head. He smiled knowingly. You hear it too. The room vibrated gently, like a distant choir, then stilled. The next morning, Alexander walked to the kitchen and paused. On the counter lay a folded paper boat, neatly creased. He frowned. He had left no such thing. Malik emerged from the guest room, sheepish. You made this? Alexander asked. My grandmother taught me, said paper boats were prayers. You fold them, set them in water, and they carry what you can't. Alexander touched the fragile thing. Its sails sharp with promise. And what prayer did you fold into this? Malik hesitated. That you'd say her name again today. Alexander's breath caught. He looked at the photo on the counter. Elena's smile, patient as ever. He whispered, Elena. The paper boat trembled slightly, though no breeze moved the air. Alexander stepped back, unsettled. Malik only smiled, as though the answer had been given. Later that week, Alexander invited Malik to accompany him to a board meeting downtown. Malik resisted at first. His coat was patched, his shoes worn. But Alexander insisted, pressing a tailored jacket into his hands. In the sleek conference room, men and women in suits spoke of markets, percentages, efficiencies. Their words clattered like coins dropped on marble. Malik sat quietly at the side, invisible to most. Then the screens froze. The projector failed. Lights flickered once, twice. A silence fell, awkward and thick. Malik, instinctively, hummed under his breath. The same lullaby, barely audible. The projector blinked alive. Lights steadied. The room warmed as if grateful. Executives glanced at each other, muttering about circuits. Only Alexander noticed Malik, sitting calmly, still humming. He stared, shaken. Is this coincidence? That evening they stopped at a small park. Children played under weak street lamps. Malik folded another paper boat, set it gently in the fountain. A girl nearby pointed. Look, it's moving, she cried. The boat sailed not with the fountain's current but against it, circling once before resting at the edge. Alexander knelt beside Malik, voice hushed. What is happening? Malik shrugged. Maybe the world remembers kindness when it sees it. Maybe rooms and rivers know the sound of truth. Alexander's logical mind rebelled. But his heart, starved, grieving, leaned toward belief. He whispered, Elena. The fountain bubbled suddenly, a higher spout than before, splashing both men. Malik laughed. Seems she likes being remembered. Alexander wiped his face, trembling not from cold but from awe. That night, unable to sleep, Alexander walked the apartment halls. The air itself seemed alive, like a chest inhaling. He paused by Malik's door and listened to the hum of the lullaby. It was then he realized. It wasn't only Malik who was being changed. It was him. The billionaire who had trusted only numbers now felt the whisper of something greater. A force that stitched grief and hope into music. A current that no technology could program. And though he could not name it yet, he knew. This was the beginning of a miracle. Breath caught. He looked at the photo on the counter. Elena's smile, patient as ever. He whispered, Elena. The paper boat trembled slightly, though no breeze moved the air. Alexander stepped back, unsettled. Malik only smiled, as though the answer had been given. Later that week, Alexander invited Malik to accompany him to a board meeting downtown. Malik resisted at first. His coat was patched, his shoes worn. But Alexander insisted, pressing a tailored jacket into his hands. In the sleek conference room, men and women in suits spoke of markets, percentages, efficiencies. Their words clattered like coins dropped on marble. Malik sat quietly at the side, invisible to most. Then the screens froze. The projector failed. Lights flickered once, twice. A silence fell, awkward and thick. Malik, instinctively, hummed under his breath. The same lullaby, barely audible. The projector blinked alive. Lights steadied. The room warmed as if grateful. Executives glanced at each other, muttering about circuits. Only Alexander noticed Malik, sitting calmly, still humming. He stared, shaken. Is this coincidence? That evening, they stopped at a small park. Children played under weak street lamps. Malik folded another paper boat, set it gently in the fountain. A girl nearby pointed. Look, it's moving, she cried. The boat sailed not with the fountain's current but against it, circling once before resting at the edge. Alexander knelt beside Malik, voice hushed. What is happening? Malik shrugged. Maybe the world remembers kindness when it sees it. Maybe rooms and rivers know the sound of truth. Alexander's logical mind rebelled, but his heart, starved, grieving, leaned toward belief. He whispered, Elena. The fountain bubbled suddenly, a higher spout than before, splashing both men. Malik laughed. Seems she likes being remembered. Alexander wiped his face, trembling not from cold but from awe. That night, unable to sleep, Alexander walked the apartment halls. The air itself seemed alive, like a chest inhaling. He paused by Malik's door and listened to the hum of the lullaby. It was then he realized. It wasn't only Malik who was being changed. It was him. The billionaire who had trusted only numbers now felt the whisper of something greater. A force that stitched grief and hope into music, a current that no technology could program. And though he could not name it yet, he knew. This was the beginning of a miracle. The letter. One afternoon, Alexander returned from the foundation office with a heavy envelope. Its seal bore the insignia of the city's Department of Social Welfare. Inside, a formal complaint. Neighbors had raised concerns that an unknown transient individual had been residing in the building. The language was polite but sharp. The message was clear. Malik was not welcome here. Alexander's jaw tightened. He had faced hostile investors, corrupt competitors, entire markets collapsing. But this struck differently. He had offered kindness, and the city answered with suspicion. He carried the letter into the kitchen, where Malik was washing dishes. What's wrong? Malik asked, reading his face. Alexander laid the letter on the counter. They want you gone. Malik dried his hands slowly. He read the words, lips tightening, eyes clouded with the familiarity of rejection. This isn't new. The city always finds a way to remind me I don't belong. You belong here, Alexander said firmly. Malik shook his head. Not on paper. Not in their eyes. The accident. That night, as if the letter had summoned calamity, misfortune struck again. Malik had gone down to the street to clear his thoughts. Rain had returned, slicking the sidewalks into mirrors. A delivery truck turned too quickly. Tires shrieked. Malik leapt back but slipped on wet pavement. He hit the ground hard. His shoulder cracked against the curb, pain shooting through his body. The truck braked inches away. By the time Alexander rushed down, Malik was clutching his arm, pale with shock. At the hospital, doctors confirmed a fractured shoulder and bruised ribs. Malik winced as they set his arm in a sling. Alexander stood by helplessly, fury and fear warring in his chest. Will he be okay? He demanded. The doctor nodded. With rest. But he'll need a stable environment, physical therapy. Stress will slow recovery. Alexander looked at Malik. Brave, silent, hiding pain behind pride. Stable environment? The letter at home said the opposite. The courtroom. A week later, the case escalated. City officials questioned why a billionaire was housing a homeless man without clearance. Rumors twisted the truth. Some whispered Malik was exploiting Alexander. Others accused Alexander of using Malik for publicity. A hearing was scheduled. The courtroom was sterile, fluorescent lights buzzing like gnats. At the front sat a judge with eyes sharp from years of cutting through excuses. On one side, Alexander with his legal team. On the other, Malik sitting alone until Alexander insisted he move beside him. The city's representative spoke first. While we commend Mr. Wycliffe's charitable intentions, housing an unregistered individual in a private residence creates safety and legal concerns. We request Malik Carter be relocated to an authorized facility. The words stung Malik like whips. Relocated. As though he were not a man but a misplaced object. The judge turned to Alexander. Mr. Wycliffe, why defy protocol? Alexander rose. He had spoken in boardrooms worldwide, his voice often a weapon. But here he spoke not with power, but with truth. Because Malik is not a project nor a liability. He is a man who returned what was mine when he had every reason to keep it. He reminded me of my wife's name when I had nearly forgotten it. He has given back more than I can ever repay. If the law cannot recognize dignity when it stands in front of it, then perhaps the law is blind. The room stilled. Even the buzzing lights seemed to hush. Malik looked down, fighting tears. The breaking point. But the judge, bound by procedure, was unmoved. The law does not run on sentiment. Mr. Carter must be transferred to city housing within 72 hours. The gavel fell like thunder. Malik felt the floor vanish beneath him. Alexander's hand gripped his shoulder, but the verdict echoed louder. Separation. That evening, back at the penthouse, Malik sat on the edge of the guest bed, sling cradling his shoulder, eyes staring into nothing. It's happening again, he whispered. Every time I think I've found a place, it ends. Alexander knelt in front of him. No, this isn't the end. Malik shook his head. You don't understand. Out there I'm invisible. In here I'm a problem. I don't belong anywhere. His voice cracked, breaking the dam of pride. Tears spilled. He buried his face in his good hand. Alexander's own eyes burned. He wanted to promise safety, permanence, belonging. But the weight of the law pressed down. For the first time in years, he felt utterly powerless. The apartment seemed to echo Malik's despair. The air turned cold. The hum of warmth that had once filled the rooms fell silent. The paper boats on the windowsills sagged, edges curling from sudden damp. Alexander whispered into the hollow air. Elena, if you can hear, help me. I don't know what to do. But no breeze answered. No miracle stirred. Only silence. It was the darkest night either man had faced since they met.